Hi, and welcome to tonight's episode of This Is Me. So, tonight's episode is a little bit different. We're doing it on Zoom, but I am also live on Instagram. So, hopefully, it'll work. We're doing a bit of two places at once. So, tonight's episode is all about hormone health. I'm going to be talking, my guest tonight is Caitlin Farquharson, and she is the founder of the House of Hormones, which I'm super excited to chat to her about because it's something looking at getting educated about my own hormone health. It's just something I've done has been so important to me, and it's definitely like I definitely don't know loads about it. So I'm so excited to speak to someone who's actually a bit more educated than me about it. But I know what I have learned has just made such a massive, massive impact on my life and my health and mindset. So I'm so excited to chat to her. So I'm going to bring her into the room and yeah, well, just quickly, just a full disclaimer, full transparency here. There might be a little, this is your trigger warning that there might be some topics because we're talking about hormone health and everything that encompasses. So that's like female hormone health. The topic of fertility might come up, depression, anxiety. If there's anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, please do what you feel you need to do to look after yourself. Be your own judgment on your well-being. Take responsibility for your own well-being here. And if you need to log off, then log off. Totally do what you need to. So I'm going to bring Caitlin on. We'll bring her on the Zoom, see if we're doing amazing. I keep forgetting it's not Instagram and I'm like the screen's splitting. Hi Caitlin, how you doing?
Hello, I'm all right. How
Hi.
are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So I'm just,
Good.
yeah, I'm just talking about the tech I've got is set up on live and Zoom. So we'll see how it
Okay.
goes. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to chat to you.
No,
Like
thank
I
you
mentioned
for having me.
before, it's a topic I am really interested in because I dived into it at a time where I wanted other options. So I'd love to just get your take on like your origin story. How did you get interested in your hormone health?
Yeah, so it was only a couple of years ago actually. So to cut a long story short, kind of from the age of about 16, I had been having problems with my hormones, but I didn't know that. I'd just gone to the doctor because I was having really like kind of heavy periods. They were really irregular. It was just getting really difficult to manage with being at school and things. And I just went to say, look, I'm sure this is completely fine, but like, is there anything you would recommend? And they actually put me on the pill, but I didn't know it was the pill. They didn't actually tell me it was the contraceptive pill. They just said, I'm going to give you a prescription for this tablet that will help basically to regulate your periods. And I didn't know anything about hormones at the time, so I didn't make the connection. So I was taking this for years. And then, kind of about 19, decided to get the implant, not knowing I was already taking the contraceptive pill. So I decided to get the implant. So I was actually taking both or had both for a period of time. Stopped taking those pills eventually, and then had my implant for about 6.5 years. And at the time, I didn't think I had any problems with it. I thought that it was working really well for me. Other people had like my friends and things that had tried it, had hated it, and I felt really, really lucky because I thought I'd found the thing that like worked for me. And it was only a couple of years ago that I'd started kind of just having some just minor things like just kind of not feeling great. My moods were quite low. I was starting to kind of notice my hair was getting quite thin on my head, things like that. And I thought, like my mum kept saying to me, it might be your hormones, you should go to the doctor. Eventually, I thought, right, I will just to see what they say. And they had said it might be like polycystic ovarian syndrome. So she was like, oh, I noticed you've got an implant. We need to take that out just to do some blood tests. So I got it out, had to wait about 8 weeks before I could get the blood test done. And in that period of time, the difference in myself as a person was like so just unexpected because I hadn't noticed that over those 6 years that I was getting kind of progressively more and more, I guess flat is the best way to describe it. And it was like once that came out, I just felt I felt like I got my personality back and I felt so much clearer and I felt great, to be honest. So when I got the blood test, they came back fine. And she was like, yeah, it doesn't seem like you have PCOS, which is great. But I think what would be really helpful is if we put you onto the combined pill instead of the implant, because I think the estrogen in the pill will just really help you with, like feeling a lot better, it'll deal with those symptoms you've been talking about, etc. And I never really had any reason to doubt that. So I started on the pill, and it only took 3 months from when I started the pill to when I decided to come off of it for me to basically do a complete and utter like 180 in terms of my health, my moods, everything. I just went from being really confident, really kind of like clear headed, feeling really positive, to just being an absolute anxious, depressed mess, to the point where I couldn't be left on my own. Like my partner and my mum had to basically take shifts of being with me 24/7 because I couldn't be left on my own. I cried constantly. I couldn't eat for days at a time. I was so dizzy. I was sick. Like everything was just going wrong. My hair was falling out. My skin broke out. Like I just was getting all these infections. Like everything just went completely insane. And I was like, I can't stay on this. And I came off, and after I came off, it got 10 times worse. And I didn't think it could get 10 times worse. And yeah, it was basically during that period of time where I just felt like my life was like falling apart. Like I just felt like I just couldn't function. Basically, I had to take time off work. Like, oh, it was absolutely terrible. My mum actually bought me a book all about hormones, and she was kind of like, "This might not help, but it's worth a try." And it was from reading that book that I then realised how little I knew about any of this, and actually the way I was feeling, contrary to what the doctors were telling me, the way I was feeling was a legitimate thing. It was my hormones. It was because of the pill. It was I wasn't making it up basically. And so that's what kind of sparked my interest. And I realised I wasn't going to get any help from the doctors that didn't involve like antidepressants or the pill again. So I kind of set myself on this journey of trying to figure out, like, I couldn't go on like that. So I had to figure out how to fix it myself. And it took me a long time. It took me about 10 months to kind of do all the reading and research and trial and error and all of that I could, till I kind of got to a point where I could say I was probably about 80% back to normal. And yeah, it's just kind of grown from there ever since. So now I've kind of, I'm out the other side of my experience, and but now I come across people every single day, whether it's a similar thing or it's something different, that are struggling with their hormones. And now I can be that person that I needed to say, you're not making this up and you're not alone, and like you don't have to be dealing with this. So yeah, so it just kind of grew out of my own experience, really.
I love that you're not alone, like, because sometimes you do think you're crazy. See, when you're like, is it just me? And it's sometimes that's the beauty of having these conversations, isn't it, Caitlin? Because like we're saying, we're not saying anything against like doctors' advice or anything like that might work for you in your situation. We're just talking about our own experiences, our perception and opinion. And it's just about, if you need another option, that might work for some people, but like having that break, that 8-week break, you just had that to compare it to, and you're like, do you know what, this isn't how I want to feel. And it's amazing you can how used to how you can get used to feeling crap, isn't it? Like that 6 years compound effect of it all slowly building up. It's like you just think it's you. And when people are reinforcing that as well, that you trust, like doctors that are like, you know what, maybe this is just your makeup, this is your body. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's amazing your mum like reiterated that the hormone uh chat, isn't it? It's like, it
Mm-hmm.
might be like, so I just love that, because my experience is a bit different, and we spoke about this a little bit on messaging. And it's just about like I didn't really look into hormone health. And it's funny that, isn't it? It's like not until you need to, but it's just something at the back of your head is like, maybe it's that.
Yeah.
And then you start diving into, luckily we've got like the internet and everything. But I was trying to get pregnant and couldn't for a couple of years, and I just thought, what's, let nature take its course and everything, wasn't too stressed about it. But then when it started taking a bit longer than I expected. I did, and the same, went to the doctors, and they'd just asked, like, were you having periods? I was like, yep. They were like, well, there shouldn't be a problem. And it was just, so it was nice to have that black and white answer, but then obviously it's opened up this Pandora's box as well, like, but why? And then discovered that there was an unexplained reason, like there wasn't any specific reason. So that's when I get interested in cycle lengths and your ovulation phase. Because obviously, so by doing that, it turned out I think I was missing, because the days you're ovulating is very short, isn't it? Is it like 1 or 2 days? Is that right?
Yeah.
So you're like,
Yes.
if you're missing that, you're missing that every month. Like, there's no way you're going to get pregnant. So, and it's funny, we were chatting as well. It's like when you're trying to get pregnant, there's not really a lot of advice, because your whole mindset is like, from when I've been young, it's like, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant. So you've got that battle as well to reframe. But so I realised, like, I have a shorter. I don't have the 28-day cycle. I have like the 25-day, and obviously then I was missing the ovulation phase or day. So that's why I think it was taking so long. And then I think it was literally, like you mentioned, within its very, very short amount of time, when you start to focus on it and put into practice what you know. Like, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 months of actually tracking my cycle properly, that ended up getting pregnant. So it was like after 2 years, like, and then really looking into it, it was 2 months. It got down to 2 months, sort of thing. So, I love that. Like, so what other benefits have you noticed by tracking your cycle? Oh, tell me what you actually do, because I'm like, tracking your cycle, and you call yourself the Hormone Fairy Godmother. So what is it? What does that entail?
Yeah, so someone else actually called me that at one point. That's where I got that from.
You're like,
Someone else kind
happy
of used that to describe me, and I
that?
thought, I'm going to steal that.
Yes, it's fab.
Yeah, so I mean, for me personally, like I am very big on tracking your cycle, and I think, like you say, there's such a kind of misconception around hormone health, menstrual health generally, where it's kind of like, if you're not trying to get pregnant, you don't need to know about it. It doesn't really matter. Whereas I think tracking your cycle is one of the best, most empowering things that you can do, whether you're trying to get pregnant or not. So I think for me, like, I do track it. So I use natural cycles to track it. Personally, I don't rely on that and we can obviously use that as a standalone contraceptive. I don't, but I do use it as a very accurate way of tracking my cycle, because I'm taking my temperature every morning. So I do track my cycle, and as far as possible, I do try to use where I am in my cycle to kind of plan the rest of my life. And it doesn't clearly always go 100% like that, because if there's just something that needs done, it needs done regardless of how I'm feeling or what's going on. But I try to keep it in mind, and I try to teach other people to keep it in mind, because it impacts everything. So, like, somebody might say to me, like, like, oh, I'm just feeling so frustrated at myself, and I'll be like, why? And they're like, I'm trying to finish this, like, report and this admin work. Last week I was getting right through it and getting my head down. This week I just can't get the words out, and like, should have got it done 10 minutes. It took me an hour. And I'm like, where are you in your cycle? And then they'll say, and I'm like, they'll be like, oh, my period's just been. And I'm like, right, okay, so you're going through this cycle for a reason, and it's not just your body, it's everything. So yeah, last week you could get that done with that a lot more easily, because you were in that stage where that's kind of like your superpower, that being able to sit down, focus on stuff, shut the world out. This week that's not your superpower. So I feel like, yes, understanding when you ovulate 100%, and if you're ovulating, because ovulation is one of the biggest, like, misconceptions, I feel like, when it comes to this, amongst doctors and people that are not medical professionals as well. It's so important for your overall health, like, regardless of fertility and anything else, you need to be ovulating for your overall health. It's just like, it just is a thing you need to be doing. But yeah, I think understanding where you are in your cycle, understanding how to work with your hormones at any given stage, instead of trying to force yourself to be the same person day in and day out. That's not how we were designed. So sometimes people are making it 10 times harder for themselves, because they don't know this stuff, and they don't work with it. They're just expect themselves to basically be a man and, like, wake up every single day, take on the day with the same mindset, the same energy, the same everything. And that's not how we work. So I think, yeah, 100% tracking your cycle is one of the best things, and like I said, the most empowering things you can do for yourself. Definitely, I think by this stage I've been doing it long enough that I know my body inside out, and having that connection to myself in a way that I didn't before is great, because one, I don't have any kind of unexplained things going on. If something's happening, I know why it's happening. I know what it's doing. If something comes up that I'm not used to, I know that's something different for me, and I understand why it's happening and how to fix it. And yeah, I just feel so much more in touch with myself. So I definitely recommend everybody tracks their cycle. And I think even if your cycle's not regular, like people say, oh, I don't have regular cycles. Well, that's absolutely fine, but tracking it might actually help you start to understand, okay, why is that? Because once you've got that data, it's much more easy for you to take that to somebody like a hormone coach or a naturopath or whoever you want to, a doctor, whoever you want to work with, and actually say, okay, look, here's what's going on. And they can start to pinpoint actually why is that the case. So yeah, I would definitely say tracking your cycle is a massive one. Figuring out whether you're ovulating and how often is a massive one. And yeah, just starting to learn kind of what's actually happening in your body. It's doing a lot of things. It's more than just period comes, period goes. There's a lot going on, and once you understand it,
And
it's
I
really
love
good.
it. It's so empowering because I think that was one of my favourite things that I learned that guys do. They are working on the circadian rhythm, so the 24-hour day. So they are the same every day. So they have, and especially I'm really interested in like the hustle culture and why, you know, it is a very masculine theme term. And that was one of my favourite things that like women are they're working on this obviously the 24-hour clock, but also this 28-day cycle as well. So we're different every day. So
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, we're different every day, and we're not supporting ourselves to be that way, and we're not really supported in our culture, are we either? In society, we're expected to be the same every day. So it's having that understanding as well. So yeah, and again, I've just got like loads of little bits like you mentioned about yeah, it's not an excuse just to like F off your projects or your pitch or your presentations or your networking event that you've got to go to or host because you're in X stage of your cycle. It's about, you know what, maybe planning that maybe booking that networking event when you are like super zing and super you as your when socializing and being sociable is your superpower, like you mentioned. I love that. So please touch on. So you mentioned like ovulating is one of the best things that you can figure out, like you can focus on. How does that? Because correct me if I'm right, if I'm wrong. The ovulating. Do we ovulate if we're on the pill, or does
No.
that shut that down?
Yes. Yeah, so you're not ovulating if you're on any kind of hormonal birth control, which is one of several ways that it essentially stops you from getting pregnant. So yeah, if you're on the pill, the implant, anything like that, your cycle has completely stopped. So you're not going through a cycle. You are not ovulating. The bleed that you get every month is not a period. There's nothing. It's all stopped. It's all basically been put on pause. So yeah, you're not getting any of that if you're on the pill or anything. If you come off of that, it also might not necessarily just kind of fall back into place. It can take people quite a while, depending how long they've been on, and depending kind of in how bad of a way their hormones are when they decide to come off. It can take people quite a while, and doesn't always necessarily do it on its own. Sometimes it's kind of understanding how to sort of almost coax your own hormones back into work. But yeah, ovulating is it's one of the things that I would tell everybody about. Like, it doesn't matter what I speak to somebody about, it comes up in the conversation regardless, because I'm like, it's just so important, and we don't know this. Like, we literally don't know it, and it's because we don't get taught this. And you just, if you, some people don't even know what ovulating is, and or if you do, you just think, oh, it's what happens when you're trying to get pregnant. But you need it to be happening regardless of whether you're trying to get pregnant, because it's kind of, as people who menstruate, it's kind of the foundation of our overall health, to be honest.
So what impact does it make on your health? Like how important is it? Can you explain like what areas it does impact? Like
Yeah,
how it show up in your life?
so you have kind of two primary like female sex hormones that most people will know about, which is estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is they are like sister hormones, but they're slightly different because you produce estrogen kind of ongoingly, whilst you are not on any kind of hormonal contraception, and obviously before you kind of pass through menopause, you're producing estrogen and from multiple different places in your body, and you also get it from some foods. And unfortunately, you also take in essentially like bad estrogen from things like chemicals in like cleaning products, and toxins in the air, things like that. So it's very easy for you to have essentially your own estrogen and then an overload of estrogen, which is actually one of the most common hormonal imbalances. But with progesterone, you actually only get progesterone from ovulating. So when you ovulate, the little sac that the egg has been in is what produces the progesterone. So if you're not ovulating, you're not producing basically any progesterone. And without progesterone, it doesn't balance out your estrogen. So estrogen can run riot and that's essentially what causes PMS. If you've got too much estrogen, that's what causes like PMS symptoms before your period. If you suffer from like kind of like breast pain or like kind of feel like you've got sort of like lumpy boobs, if you suffer from like if you get like hormonal anxiety or depression, mood swings, weight gain, water retention, hundreds of things too much estrogen causes, and it's because there's not enough progesterone to balance. But progesterone is so important for your health aside from that because it plays its own role. Obviously it does in terms of kind of preparing for pregnancy, but that aside, it's a natural antidepressant. It's a natural diuretic, so it stops essentially like you holding too much water. It balances out your estrogen. It's important for like your bone health. It's important for your heart health. It does so many different things in your body, but like I said, there's no way for you to kind of get it. Like you can't eat food to get progesterone, or I know you can get like progesterone creams and things, which are a bit iffy if they're not bioidentical. Because it's not really any different from like taking the pill, for example. You don't know how it's going to respond to you, and if they're not bioidentical, there's no guarantee it's going to actually work the same way that your natural progesterone would. So if you're not ovulating and you're therefore not producing this progesterone, you're then suffering, like you're not gaining all these benefits that it's there to give you. And the main one people will notice, as I say, is PMS. So things like I said, like you notice the typical things like your moods, cramp, your boobs are sore, you've got headaches, like all those typical things. You're not sleeping well, periods being heavy, being irregular, your cycles being short, all of these things, like spotting between your periods, or maybe getting like a couple of days where you've got like brown blood before you start bleeding red. All of these things are all signs you don't have enough progesterone, which can be for reasons other than that you're not ovulating. There's other reasons your progesterone could be low, but certainly if you're not ovulating, you're not getting any, because that's the only way you get it. So yeah, it's really important.
So mad. And like you're saying, all those symptoms sound like not like so many women would describe them as that's just how they are, like when they're having their periods, sort of thing. So can you so I think that's so important to highlight the like before and after. So like what are the main reasons when your clients are working with you? Like how do they feel before they come to you, and how do they feel after they've worked with you and you're as a hormone coach? So I think that's so interesting, if you don't mind me.
So yeah, of course. Yes, I mean hormones is such a massive topic. There could be
Uh,
so many reasons. I think I tend to find that it's mostly things related to like kind of menstrual health, like period health. It's mostly that, or things like insomnia, like struggling to sleep in certain phases of their cycle. People that are not ovulating, or maybe have came off the pill and are dealing with a whole host of issues, and that can be anything really. So generally I would say the theme is that when they come, they know something is off, and a major similarity, regardless of what the symptoms are, is that they've been to their doctor and they've had the blood tests and they've been told everything's fine, or they've been told like, yeah, okay, like I get what you're saying, like you're feeling depressed, or you're struggling with your weight or your acne, here's the pill. So those are kind of the two outcomes people report again and again and again from having been through their normal channel, i.e. making a doctor's appointment. So regardless of kind of what the symptom is, that's usually the point that they're at. Like, I've been to the doctor, I've had the test, I've been referred for scans, whatever it is, I kind of don't know what to do now. So I would say that the biggest thing that I can say is that like I can tell people, a really easy plan to go and implement. I can tell them how to change their whole life. It's dependent on kind of how much you want to do, I suppose, and how much you've got the capacity to do. I know when I started my journey, you know, I could read about all these changes, I could throw everything out from my cupboards and buy all this organic, healthy food, and I could take all these supplements, but I wasn't in that space. Like the way I was feeling, I just wasn't in that space. Even if all those things would help me, I didn't have, like, I wasn't there. So I needed just the simplest thing to start with, to then start taking steps. So yeah, I mean, I can give people, you know, as much or as little as they want to take on, but I think either way, the biggest thing is the knowledge. I think just regardless of whether you follow any advice or make any changes, and I say this to people all the time, regardless of what you do when you leave this call or this session, either way, you're now armed with knowledge you're not going to forget. So even if you do nothing and you still experience the symptoms, you can now understand why they're happening. And I think that's the thing, because people say like, oh, you know, but I just love sugar. Like I don't want to have to give up the things I enjoy. That's fine. That's completely your choice. Live your life. Enjoy the sugar. You do you. But at least when you then are suffering from X, Y, and Z, you'll
Yeah.
say, that's because I ate half cheesecake last night. So I
Yes.
think that the knowledge is definitely the biggest thing I can give people. And it's the biggest thing that helped me. And I think just knowing that they're not alone,
I
and
love
that
that.
they're not making it up, and that like
Mhm.
people will start sessions by saying, "This is going to sound really weird," or like, "I feel like you've probably never heard this before," or like, "I know this is a really stupid thing to say, and it's probably just in my head." Like, no, let's like do away with that narrative, because if you're experiencing something that isn't in your head, it's happening. It doesn't matter if somebody else has told you like, that the pill doesn't do that, or that's probably just you're stressed or whatever. You know yourself, and if you know something's off, something's off. So yeah, so I think definitely knowledge. I tell everybody to start tracking their cycle if they don't already, and I tell everybody to figure out whether they're ovulating or not. So they're my things. They're my
Oh,
go-tos.
I was just thinking, do you know what? What a beautiful space to create for people to allow them to get those thoughts out of their head as well, and just to let them know that they're not alone and there is another option. And then, like you're saying, they can make informed decisions. We're all adults here. It's our life. Like we're all big girls, like you're saying, you do you, but at least you have that info now, and I absolutely love what you're doing. So, what would
Thank
your
you.
top tip be? You mentioned a few there. What would your top tip be? Probably mentioned it actually. Like, what would your if you wanted someone wanted to start, and they, like you're saying, they wanted a super simple tip to get started on looking after their hormone health.
So I would say, aside from the things that I've said, two things. If you don't already, start taking a magnesium supplement, but it needs to be a specific type of magnesium. So people, it's quite a common, people know they should probably take magnesium, but not everybody does. But statistically, women are like chronically deficient in magnesium. It's the first of your minerals to be depleted when you're stressed or your body's dealing with any kind of stress. And having things like irregular periods can be that stress. So any kind of stress, your magnesium will go as the first thing. So we all need to be taking magnesium, but it needs to be if it's like things like promoting better sleep or kind of dealing with like anxiety and things like that, it needs to be magnesium glycinate. So there's a few different types of magnesium. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I tried magnesium, but it didn't really help, and it really upset my stomach." That's because you're taking a different type of magnesium that's meant to promote bowel movements, because that's for people that are constipated, but it's the most common one. So people just go in and they buy magnesium. You need to get magnesium glycinate. That's the one that will work in terms of your sleep and your mood and stuff. So say that. The other thing is B vitamins. So definitely if you are on the pill or any kind of hormonal contraception, or you've just come off of it, B vitamins is a must, because the pill massively depletes the B vitamins in your body, and it will affect like your ability to concentrate. It'll affect your moods. It'll affect your energy. So if you're kind of noticing any of those things, definitely B vitamins. So I would say those are my kind of easy starting points, just as something you can implement.
Yes, exactly. They can fit into your routine no matter how busy you are. Amazing. Love that. Thank you so much, Caitlin.
No worries.
Let us know, let the listeners know what you've got coming up or how they can get in touch with you if they'd love to find out more and work with you.
Yeah, so a couple of quick things I will say. I'm not on Instagram, controversial, because I've just never gotten around to setting it up. And to be honest with you, I spend all my time on LinkedIn, and I love LinkedIn, and that's kind of where my business mostly comes from. So if you're on LinkedIn, you'll find me on there. Feel free to drop me a message. Alternatively, you can just look up my website, which is just houseofhormones.uk. At the moment, so tomorrow morning, I'm actually launching the membership. So I've set up a membership community. It's launching tomorrow, which is really exciting. So basically, it's just, as you said before, it's creating a safe space for people that are interested in learning about hormone health to all come together in one group, one platform, and kind of learn about it, but also be able to kind of connect with other people, share their experiences, get support, and basically not kind of have to do it on your own. So that's really exciting, and the group I'm launching with are brilliant. So it's going to be a really amazing group. So you can get in touch if you're interested in getting on the wait list for
Pop
the next
the
launch.
Sorry, I'll pop the
No,
link to your website and your LinkedIn as well on here, so you can just copy and paste. So that'll be in there. But amazing, that sounds fab. I definitely want to join that as well. So thank you so much again for coming on.
no worries.
I've learned it's so interesting. I've learned so much, and you just put it across like it's such a easy to understand way. So I really appreciate it. And yeah, again, thanks for coming on for your time, and hopefully see you soon at another networking event.
Yes,
Yeah,
for
we'll
sure.
catch up soon. And have a
Definitely.
brilliant night. And I'll let you go. I'll speak to you later.
You too.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Bye
See you
bye.
later. Bye.